Guys, Glover Teixeira is officially the #1 contender at 41 years old with a rear naked choke victory over Thiago Santos last night. We're talking about it right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So Nick, what a surprise victory last night. I have to be honest and say that I did not pick Glover to win that fight. I thought Santos was going to win. Although Glover is a very tough guy and extremely hard to finish, I thought Santos would get it done.
Yeah.
That was not what happened.
Yeah, I mean, Glover's tough as nails. And just when you think he might have seen his better days or, his prime is long gone and he's just now fighting to finish his career, he comes out with a performance like that. And there's been a few fights in his most recent history where in the first few seconds or minutes or definitely in the first round, it appears that he's all but out.
Yeah.
You know, and I was almost ready to say, God, ref needs to step in when he was fighting Santos last night and was just getting hit and hit and hit. And then eventually was able to string together a takedown and work some great ground and pound and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. So, you can't count Glover out in the cage during the fight or in his career.
No, you definitely can't. And I remember the same thing when he absolutely ate some serious shots
Santos
in that first
only
round.
Throws vicious power.
He's the sledgehammer. He's the Brazilian sledgehammer.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got it tattooed down his chest.
Right, Brock Lesnar style.
Exactly. I even like that one better than the Brock Lesnar tattoo. I have to be honest.
It's close. Neither of them compared to the gorilla on Connor's chest. But for a weapon on your chest, I'd say they're top two.
And for another great Brazilian fighter to say that you absolutely back up every sense of that word and that tattoo. You really, truly do hit like a sledgehammer. When the first round started, Santos, I was like, wow, he looks good. He looks crisp. He was throwing some feints and some fakes. He was landing shots. He rocked Glover. I said, wow, this might be over early. This might be a first round knockout. And Santos is going to be super hard to deny. I was thinking as that first round was going on, man, they might have to make Santos versus Blachowicz and tell Izzy to sit back a minute. Boy, was I did I jump the gun in a big way. And then when you were saying, oh, I think they're probably going to stop the fight, I was like, no, actually looks like Glover's getting a takedown. Looks like he's trying to wrap up a double leg. And sure enough, he turned the tide in that first round. And, I still kind of wanted to give that round to Santos because he got the knockdown. He landed the big shots. But Glover dominated the second half of that round with some incredible ground and pound and just how he's got this relentless grappling pressure to pass the guard, get to side control, hold you there. I mean, I don't think people realize Thiago Santos is also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and a beast of a human being.
Right.
To be able to take him down, hold him down, and impose vicious ground and pound for multiple minutes at a time, that's really a tough thing to do.
Yeah, and my first thought whenever that first round was taking place was, okay, obviously, pretty much no matter what happens after this knockdown and all of that stuff that Glover just went through, he's probably going to lose this round. But then, he controlled the ground fighting for about 3.5 minutes, almost the entire round, essentially. And then I go, maybe he did win that first round. I ended up giving it to him on my unofficial scorecard. He didn't really try to submit from there. He was dominating with the ground and pound and the top pressure and everything that he was doing, he was winning in. So I did give that round to him, even though he got rocked in it. It was great. And, one thing about Herb Dean is he's a veteran of the sport as far as refereeing goes. And it's a tough line you have to balance because Glover Teixeira is one of their favorite fighters. Everybody loves Glover. You can't be a fan of the sport, not love Glover Teixeira. So you don't want to see him get hurt, but you also have to remember just how tough he is.
Yeah.
And you have to understand he's a fighter. He's still a competitor at heart, and even though he's in his 40s, he's still a dog in there. And he doesn't want you to stop the fight. And even though it may look like things weren't going his way and it might be an early night for Thiago Santos, he might get his hand raised pretty quickly. He fought through it, and as I'm like, oh my God, ref, stop the fight. I'm like, wait, but maybe don't stop the fight. Maybe. And so props to Herb Dean for letting this thing go on. He saw something that I didn't see, and we ended up getting a great several rounds out of these two fighters, and Glover kind of shocked everybody.
It was a strange fight in a lot of ways because it was like, you said it in the third round too, because Glover got rocked in the first round,
Yeah.
and then he kind of dominated the second round, and then he got rocked again in the third round, and you're like, oh, this is so frustrating when you see a fighter do everything right, and then they just walk themselves into getting caught. But then he turned the tide. I mean, Thiago got on top in the third round, and he was invoking some seriously heavy ground and pound.
For sure.
And then Glover just reversed the position on him, took his back, and literally started, he got both hooks in, and ultimately did some more ground and pound, did some more position, hand fighting movement and everything, and ultimately finished with that great rear naked choke. It was a very back and forth fight, but it was not back and forth in the sense that it was like one guy would dominate for a minute, then the other guy. It was like Thiago would have these absolute bombs land, and then you would thought that Glover was like about to be out on his feet or out on the ground, and then the next thing you know, he's got his back.
Right.
It was incredible, but it's so hard to have, especially being Herb Dean, to have been in there trying to officiate that fight. That must have been one of the tougher ones he's done in recent history, because there was 1 minute you're about to stop it because Santos is gonna win and knock out Glover potentially, and then 30 seconds later you're about to stop it again because Glover's got a rear naked choke in. It was a very strange fight, but at 41 years old, I think Glover is officially the number one contender again.
Yeah, and they aren't really keen over at the UFC on putting 41-year-olds into title fights and strapping titles around 40-plus-year-old fighters, but Glover Teixeira is pretty much become undeniable. He just beat the number one contender. There's some business that needs to take place at 205 right now. I'm pretty sure they're going to do the Izzy versus Blachowicz fight, and that's a big money fight, bigger than Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira for obvious reasons. But Glover, if he hangs out for a little while, he's kind of fought almost everybody in the division. Yeah. I do think that it would be cool to see him get a title shot. And, one thing, going back to the X's and O's of the fight, Santos is such a muscle-bound, genetic freak, if you will. And in the best way possible, he's a freak.
He fought with two busted knees against the greatest, but arguably the greatest fighter to ever do it in John Jones.
Right, but muscular fighters like that always tend to gas out a little bit. And when I saw him get on top of Glover Teixeira and was doing a little bit of ground and pound, wasn't really trying to submit, but was going for a top pressure game on the ground. And then I saw Glover reverse it and then take control of the ground. You realize there's true levels to the jiu-jitsu game, different levels of black belts. Not every black belt is a black belt just like the next one. There's true levels to it. Glover Teixeira is a phenomenal grappler, a phenomenal jiu-jitsu player. And I think all the muscle that Thiago Santos carries is the reason that we saw such a quick tap. And I don't want to say he gave up, but I think he used every ounce of energy that he possibly had in those 3 rounds. 15 months off out of the cage is very difficult, especially when you're coming off an injury. He probably took about a year to rehab those knees and stuff like that. So I think Thiago came out there, left a huge storm for Glover to try to get through. He couldn't quite take Glover out with it, and then Glover was able to run away with it. Experience played a role in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Experience and just pure toughness.
Yeah.
And great jiu-jitsu. That's a great point you made. When you think of who are the best jiu-jitsu players in MMA, Damian Maia comes to mind, Brian T. City Ortega, people like that. I think that we need to put Glover Teixeira in that conversation. Yeah. I mean, he was going for submission after submission. His pressure grappling, his ground and pound, his understanding of position and his advancement of position was just unbelievable. And
he sunk in 2 rear naked chokes. One was successful. The first one he tried. The only reason Thiago Santos got out of it is because he was saved by the bell. If he would have had another 20 seconds on the clock, the fight would have been over right before the end of the second round. And Glover Teixeira, I think he poses a lot of problems. I said this last night, and I want you guys' honest opinions in the comment section, because I said this, and I think I might have raised some eyebrows around here when we were watching the fights. But follow me on this: Glover Teixeira, although he's old, although he's been hit a lot and is past his prime. If, hypothetically, Izzy beats Jan Blachowicz and decides to defend a title at 205 and they slide Glover Teixeira in, that could be one of the toughest matchups for Izzy to fight in.
Yeah.
Now, Izzy, he can take punches, but so can Glover.
better than almost
I would
anybody.
venture to say that Thiago Santos' punches and kicks are harder and more powerful than Izzy Adesanya's. I might be wrong on that, but I'm willing to at least bring it to the table. I definitely think he has an advantage on the ground. And, I just think that even though he's not the prime suspect of who you would want to see Izzy fight, or who he hasn't been coming out of Izzy's mouth at all, I think after this weekend, there's somebody that I would potentially like to see Izzy fight in Glover Teixeira, and I think that Glover would bring much more of a fight than probably most people, especially the Vegas odds makers, would give him a chance.
Yeah, totally agree. And I mean, I want to see the Izzy Jan Blachowicz fight just as much as the next guy. But if there was ever a case to be made for, okay, Izzy, like maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves. Yeah. Let's let the real number one contender come in and fight. You got Blachowicz versus Glover. I think that's an incredible matchup. I would be almost willing to say, let's hold off on the Izzy and Jan fight right now, and let's let Glover get one last crack at the title. Yeah. I mean, the guy had to win 20 fights in a row over a 9-year period of time to get that first title shot against John Jones back in 2014. 20 fights in a row.
That's almost unheard of.
And he has submitted Ion Cutelaba recently, knocked out Anthony Smith.
Right.
Now he's submitted Thiago Santos. Mm-hmm. The guy's been around forever. He's carried a lot of weight for the sport. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I would rather see him get the shot over Izzy against Jan. And I know it's not as big of a money fight, and I know all of that. And I know Jan's probably going to want to try to cash in on the fact that he's the champion now, and I get all of that, and I don't disagree with any of that. But just from, a fan standpoint, I'd rather see Glover right now. I'd rather him get the shot than Izzy right now.
And time's not on his side. I mean, he's 41 years old. Probably by the time he gets a title shot mid-next year, he could be 42. I'm not exactly sure when his birthday is. But, we just have to see what pans out. I do believe that the UFC is all but done with the Jan Blachowicz-Izzy fight being finished. They just are looking for the right date. Yeah. I know they're looking towards March. It might end up being a little bit longer, and it would really suck if Glover had to wait that long to get another fight. But I think in this situation, if they're willing to promise him a title shot, winner versus whoever fight against the winner of Izzy versus Jan, hold out for that, man. You deserve it. I think that if anybody that's over 40 years old in the UFC deserves a shot at the title, it's Glover, not just for his body of work, but for the class act that he is in and out of the cage. Everybody loves him. He's a legend. He was given all the props to Thiago Santos. He loves what he does. He puts on great shows for us, always has. And Izzy versus Jan makes more sense as far as business goes. But you can't help but be a fan of Glover Teixeira and want to see him get one more crack at the title.
You can't. I mean, Thiago Santos not that long ago was the guy that a lot of people were saying beat John Jones. Right. They were saying that he got robbed in a fight against John Jones, and then he goes out there, and aside from 30 seconds where he was landing just ridiculous shots, he lost every other minute of that fight. And so I think that to say Glover needs to do anything else before he gets a title shot is not true in my opinion. I think that, and I agree with you 100%, he should hold out, whether it's now, whether they wait on the Izzy fight. It doesn't sound like they're going to. Some things I don't know about that. You've read some news that's out about it. So even if they do make the Izzy and Jan fight, I don't think Glover needs to do anything between now, that fight gets resolved, and then he gets the winner if Izzy wins and chooses to stay up at 205, or if Jan wins and obviously stays at 205. But I don't think he needs to do any work in the interim. He's carried enough weight for the organization thus far. He's cemented himself as the number one contender, and I think he should hold out for that title fight.
Yeah, and the layout of the light heavyweight division kind of lends to him doing that. We don't need to see Dominic Reyes go in there and fight for a title ahead of Glover. We don't need to see Anthony Smith do it ahead of Glover. We don't need to see the anomalies in the division, the Johnny Walkers and people like that.
Yeah.
There's a clear number one contender right now that isn't already basically signed to fight in Jan versus Izzy, and that's Glover Teixeira. And it just makes sense. Now, obviously, his name and his headlines and everything are going to cool down because he just won, and if he waits 6 months to fight, it's going to be tough. But if the inactivity and the musical chairs doesn't play that much in the light heavyweight division between now and March or so when the Izzy Jan fight happens, I think he's going to remain the number one contender, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, what do you think? Do you want to see Glover Teixeira get a title shot against Jan Blachowicz? Should Izzy take a hot back seat for a minute? Or do you think that they should go ahead and make the Izzy fight? Let us know in the comments. And what do you think of his performance last night at 41 years old? That's incredible. Yeah. What a guy. Can't help but be a fan of Glover Teixeira.
And also, I really want to know, roast me if you have to, but I want to know if you think Izzy Adesanya, one of his toughest competitions to date, could be Glover Teixeira if it ends up happening and Glover comes out looking like he did last night against Thiago Santos.
Good boxing, iron chin, great pressure grappling, and good submissions.
He might be the most well-rounded 40-plus-year-old mixed martial artist that the sport has. Him and Anderson Silva. Those are the two that are probably, I mean, people always said Glover had some of the best boxing in the sport, right? Now we're seeing he clearly has some really great jiu-jitsu. So.
Daniel Cormier, but he's retired now. Like,
list some other people.
Yeah, I mean, let us know, guys. Who over 40 is doing it better than Glover right now? That's the question of the day. And thank you guys for watching. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out where you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much.
Peace.